Hey everybody, welcome back. In today's video, I want to have a look at Ultra. Now, Ultra is a coin that's been around for a while, but I was only made aware of it recently, the last month or so when I was told by a friend. So I made my video and it got a good reception from you guys. A lot of you seem to like it, and I've had a lot of feedback and comments asking for another Ultra video, even in the last few days. So here I am with my Ultra video, and we can see Ultra is another nice altcoin because we have that sort of sweet spot of over 4 years of data to draw from. And this is a big deal because it means we can sort of, like I said in the last video, Frankenstein together a 4-year cycle and make more accurate predictions on where the price is likely to go based on prior performance. Now, historical data is not, a forecast of what will happen. It's not what will happen. It's only an indicator, like everything here on this channel. It's only an indicator of what can happen. And sometimes things don't play out, but having this 4-year cycle does sort of increase our chance of the same thing playing out quite a lot, because we're not in uncharted territory. We've been here before technically, so oftentimes things do play out. And when we had a look at Cardano a couple of videos back, we saw that Cardano followed a very similar pattern the last 2 cycles that it's been around for. But anyway, having a look at Ultra, we can see that first of all, I'll point out that these grayed out orange lines, these are indicators of where the halving will take place potentially, and where it has taken place. So here we had our halving on May 11th of 2020, and we can see basically straight away once this halving took place, Ultra immediately went into a bullish upward movement. I mean, not that it was bearish here. I mean, it was just trading sideways really. But as soon as the halving took place, we had 2 months there of sort of nothing action. Okay, 2 months, 2.5 months of sort of sideways after the halving. We even had a big sell-off leading up to the halving. We had one here, and then price declined a small bit again during the halving. And then 2 months later, we sort of picked up immediately and went into a bull market, sorry. And even though we had a few pullbacks, which is quite normal, it is very normal, and technically we're not in the bull run year yet. This is just post-halving. So trend immediately went bullish, and even with pullbacks, we finished the year, let's have a look where we finished the year. We finished the year, at 140% up. So over a 2x, like a 3x there roughly, our price movement. And then of course when we went into the bull run, if we take from here to here of our peak, we had a 2200% move up. So, sort of solidifying that our bull run was definitely 2021, but we 100% rallied into the bull run after the halving. And then of course, once we had our bull run, we can sort of follow these blue triangles all the way up. This is very common with a lot of cryptos, but stocks as well, everything, but they often move in triangles. They often define a range early on that they operate in, and then they usually stay within that range. There's always a few outliers, like there will be wicks below and above, but oftentimes long term they define a range early on, and then they operate within that range. And the trend usually lasts for a year and a half. And we've seen a similar thing here happen with what we've currently experienced since 2020, basically. 2020, end of bear run, we have a big sell-off that immediately, it gets a lot of value. The value of the coin in general just drops drastically. It goes from, $2.50 to, 30 cents. And then it kind of defines a range here early on. It puts in a low, it puts in a high, and then it just continues to operate within this range. And even recently, since 2023, we've sort of put in another range that we're operating in, sort of a low here, a high here. And even though we've come out of it, we have sort of the average time period has been spent within this area here between these 2 white lines. I also did want to point out that Ultra has sort of resorted back to this triangle movement, but again, just following the trend. This time it's a downward trend, so the triangles ultimately end up as lower highs, lower lows. What we have seen a little bit here, it's just a thought, there's nothing too concrete with it. We see a smaller triangle and then a larger triangle, a smaller triangle downwards. So maybe potentially here we could see, what I meant to say is we had a full triangle here, a half triangle, a a full triangle, a half triangle. Maybe now we'll see a full triangle, or we might come up to this initial setting of our resistance. We might come up and test this in the short term. I'm not too sure, to be honest with you. There's a lot of stuff up in the air at the moment, because usually before a Bitcoin halving, or at least last Bitcoin halving, Bitcoin had a big sell-off, and this was here months before the halving took place. And I had a great comment only today, this morning, that said, well, other Bitcoin halvings, we haven't had this big sell-off here because this was mainly COVID. This was COVID that caused this sell-off, and then we sort of picked up into the halving and then continued to pick up and go into our bull run. I thought that was a brilliant comment, and he was definitely right. This sell-off was caused by COVID on the Bitcoin pair and all the altcoins pairs. But also in previous halving years before this one, 2016, we've seen that Bitcoin will usually have a big sell-off sometimes immediately afterwards the halving. Maybe we saw a little bit of it here, where there's a bit of a sell-off here as well, leading up to the halving, and as the halving takes place. In 2016, we have a bigger sell-off afterwards, I think. I think it's a month afterwards. I'll have to check that number, but I checked it this morning, just to be sure. So even if we don't get this sell-off before the halving, there is a likelihood that we do get a sell-off during some time around the halving. So here the big one took place before, and that was with the global COVID scare. 2016, I don't know what the scenario was, or if there was a scenario, but we had a big sell-off sort of close afterwards, or a little time afterwards, and during. We often do see a smaller one during the halving as well, but that's kind of normal. Another thing I wanted to point out was that our current sort of how far away we are from the halving is about 171 days. If this is the 24th of April that the halving is due to take place on, 171 days back. If we bring that back here, we can see that we did have a big pump here, almost exactly where we are now, of 140%, 150%. If we take a look at what we've just done, we have only done a 23% move, so there is a chance that we could have this sort of retesting of the upper band here, like I did maybe suggest. If you want to take this data from the lows here and bring it up, it would put us at somewhere around a 115% move, which could sort of line up a little bit with this prior one here. But then, of course, we did sort of see a sell-off and we returned to these lows. So ultimately, you know, if we're going off previous market analysis and how it played out there, some of your best times to buy would have been at this range, which I did say in my previous video that now is probably a good time to buy Ultra, even though I did think it would go lower. And I do think, to be honest with you, it will go lower, but there is a good chance that it goes higher before it goes lower. Again, there's a kind of a few narratives playing out with that, again, with the triangle here, big triangle, small triangle, big triangle, small triangle. Now we're due for a big triangle where we test this resistance. Again, historical data, we had a big pump here during the same time period as we did, now, and we've maybe seen the beginning of this pump, and we've come to the resistance of this smaller operating range. So whether we break above this, I don't know, but it could just be a little pit stop and then we break above, or it could just be like these smaller triangle moves, and we just get rejected and maybe come back down. It kind of depends on where the crypto space is headed. Again, every crypto cycle is different. Like, you know, history doesn't repeat itself, it rhymes. So we will see a lot of similarities, but sometimes things won't play out the exact same. And it's good that they don't. It's not good that they don't, but it's to be expected that they don't. I mean, the markets are very dynamic, and even though if you zoom out, they do look very similar cycle to cycle, oftentimes when you zoom in, the changes are quite big and drastic. So just a bit of information to point out here. Again, if we want to take a look at from where we were at the halving to the peak, we can see that it was a 6,200% move up from halving to peak. So even if you just want to look at it that way and say, well, whatever the price is at the halving, we'll be generous and say it's 14 cents. I'm expecting a 6,000% move up, maybe don't expect a 6,000% move up, but like a 6,000% move up, if we really zoom this out from, let's say 13 cent, that would put you at 6,200, $8. Can I see an $8 Ultra? I mean, it's not impossible, but it would be a big jump from the previous all-time high of $2. And another thing that I like to say to people is just prepare for the worst. There is a chance Ultra doesn't return to its all-time high. There's a chance Ultra tops out next cycle at $1.30, because this was a key level that it spent a bit of time at and had serious rejection, and it had multiple rejections here before breaking down to 25 cent, 20 cent. I'm not saying that that's likely to happen, that's just sort of a passing thought, but I say this with all altcoins. Expect the worst. And also I do say, don't set your sell options when you're in the bull run. I know this is a while away, but I just want to plant the thought in your mind now so you can think about it. Don't set your sell orders of altcoins at exact numbers. Don't sell it for $2.50, or don't sell it for $2, or don't sell it for $2. I don't know, $2. Always set it between a range where you think Ultra will go above, but not too much higher above. So maybe if you think Ultra is going, if you were in this bull run here and you thought Ultra was going to go to, you timed it perfectly, you thought Ultra was going to go to somewhere around 250, you should always set your price to be something like $2.35, just so that you make sure you clear that and you sell your whole bag in a range where you are comfortable taking profit. Because that extra 15 cent move, it could probably make you a bit of money, but is it worth the risk of not selling any of your Ultra, and then when the price crashes down to here, you then sell at 77 cents and you've only made like a 4x. A 4x is still brilliant, but in the crypto space, a 4x isn't really that great if you're holding long term and selling at correct times. So I always say, expect the worst and then sell at slightly below your expected price, because if you set it for 250, you wouldn't have sold a cent. You wouldn't have made any money with Ultra. Yeah, maybe you would have sold a few coins, but we can see it was literally up there for a second. In fact, it wasn't up there really. So yeah, sorry, a bit off topic, but I just wanted to point that out as well. So Ultra sort of. Quick breakdown, quick recap. Ultra operating within this sort of range mostly, but we've had a breakout, a small breakout, a big breakout, small breakout. Could be expected a big breakout if it's following this big, small, or we could just see a collapse. Again, this trend isn't too solidified, but it has been going on for almost 2 years now. So, for it to go on until the halving, that could be expected. Before the halving last cycle, we did see a lot of nothing movement, but this was also when Ultra launched, and I always do say don't judge an altcoin off its few months after its launch, because it's all speculation and hype, or it's just like nobody cares and it just gets forgotten about and then it picks up later on. The launch is never sort of important to me. So to be honest with you, I kind of wouldn't take on information before 2020, but for the purposes of this video where we need to sort of draw data to have a full cycle period, I'm pulling from here just so we can see. But again, it kind of just went sideways. But before that, it was going down, and then it went up, and then it went down. So again, hectic movement, but still sort of fits the narrative of we're going down. Even if we put in a lower high here, we'll still end up ultimately going further down into the halving, or maybe we'll end up putting in a lower low after the halving or during the halving, 2 months before the halving. I'm not sure, but it will probably be a similar time for all altcoins when we put in a lower low, whether it's before, after, or during the halving. And then after that low, we should just sort of be in, as long as you're holding for long term, your portfolio will probably go up quite nicely. Yeah, so that kind of covers it for the USD pair. Now switching to the BTC pair, I want to get into Ultra, but before I do, I first want to thank today's sponsor, FairDesk. FairDesk is an exchange, and if you're interested, you can click the link in the description for a 5% deposit bonus, and with no KYC required, you can start trading straight away. Now getting straight into the Bitcoin Ultra pair, we can see that it's kind of the same story here, not as much lines and not as much sort of indicators taking up and absorbing, grabbing your attention. But we can just see I've drawn this sort of value range here that we initially wicked into. This might vary for some people. Some people might want to bring this higher up, and I could definitely understand why. Again, judging a crypto by its launch price isn't always the smartest thing to do, because it's usually just all speculation. Not that the crypto's price right now isn't entirely based off speculation, but it's a lot more speculative at its launch, because there's no historical data to back it up. It's a brand new thing, so no one knows how it will actually act in the real world. It's it's hectic basically. So, but anyway, we can see that Ultra sort of launched and immediately started doing good on its Bitcoin pair. And to be honest, like, it's only been going up on its Bitcoin pair since it launched. Kind of surprising me a little bit, even though it did launch basically into the halving. Well, it launched before the halving year, which is interesting. And of course, we do have a big sell-off at launch, but once we get rid of that big sell-off that took about a month, Ultra does perform well, and it rallies up, and into the halving it rallies. I mean, it slides for a little bit during the rally and the couple months before, couple months after, but after that again it kind of picks up. It's a weird one. It's definitely one that fluctuates crazily on its Bitcoin pair. And to be honest with you, if we take a look from sort of where we launched to its highs, it doesn't actually go too crazy on its Bitcoin pair. Only a 1400% move from sort of peak to trough-ish, the average of trough, like a deep value range. Only 1400% move, which, in crypto isn't crazy for the bull run. So, it paints an interesting picture, but recently, since 2022, basically, it's only been going down. And we've sort of defined this trend here where we've set a low, set a high, and we've operated within it. Again, plenty of outliers here, plenty of big sell-offs, plenty of big pumps, but ultimately the same story. And we can see that I've drawn a arrow here indicating how far we need to go to get to the bottom of this deep value range. I will bring it up a little bit. I'll bring it to the middle of the deep value range, about 40%. We can see that we're currently, I took an average of where we currently are. We're currently at about 500 Satoshis Ultra on its Bitcoin pair. Ultra would need to make a 40% dip on its Bitcoin pair, or Bitcoin would need to go up 40% compared to Ultra, or Ultra would need to go down 40% compared to Bitcoin for it to reach this sort of deep value area that we've seen before Ultra go into at its inception, and then also literally just before the bull run, where obviously Bitcoin sort of took off and really led the way, after the halving. We can see that it was, sort of May time, Bitcoin takes a bit of dominance. Ultra had a bit of an explosion. I don't know whether that was all alts or just Ultra, but it had an explosion. And then once it peaked out, Bitcoin immediately reclaimed its dominance back, leading up into the 2021 bull run, or the post-halving year, and that's when altcoins really do tend to explode. Again, we're not even in the halving year yet, so to be talking about the post-halving year is quite a while away. But we can see that Ultra does kind of, it does well like all altcoins. But again, coming back to this sort of deep value range where we could be headed, it's very likely that Ultra does, drop down to this level, especially looking at this past performance where we've seen Ultra just like make hugely sudden moves over the space of like 2 weeks. What is that? A month, and it goes up 400%, give or take. And then, in the prior months, it comes down even lower and puts in sort of its all-time low realistically, based on accurate price action. So yeah, definitely an interesting time. I would say it's possible that we just follow this trend at least until the halving. The halving is when things start to change up and when we really need to sort of take a step back and reevaluate what we think is going to happen. But currently, I don't think much is going to change from following the current trends that we're in until maybe a month or two before the halving. And again, we might even follow those trends through the halving, and it might be a month or two after the halving where we see some sort of a flip. Again, the Fed is thinking of cutting interest rates in June, and ultimately the altcoin space does depend heavily on having low interest rates, lots of money flooding into the market, money traveling down the risk curve, and altcoins are the very end of the risk curve. So the more money floating around, the more money going into altcoins. More money going into altcoins, the more altcoins rise in price. And that's what you want if you're holding altcoins, but currently rates are still high. Money is still being pulled out of the economy. Liquidity is going down. So we can sort of continue to expect poor price action from Ultra, at least on its Bitcoin pair, because why would you put it in Ultra when you can put it in something safer like Bitcoin and experience that sort of 30% rally that we had a couple of weeks back? I think that about wraps it up for this video, guys, with Ultra. If you liked it, please leave a like, consider subscribing, comment down below if you thought this video was helpful, and if you're holding any Ultra, because I always like to talk to you guys. I really like talking to like-minded people and also learning about different opinions, and like the comment that I read this morning about the guy about the pre-halving dump was caused by COVID. Like, for some reason that didn't click in my brain, and he was dead right. So yeah, please always critique me, always give me more info. I love hearing from you guys. Take care and peace.